Folks, what's going on? Here we are back in Game 5 of the Krumpin Kup. This was a tournament that was cast by Wicked and HapyPupy on my channel on July 4th. And this is Game 5 of a best of 5 series. If you haven't seen the other battles, stop. Go back and watch them. Go back and watch them, okay? It's definitely worth watching. I have them all on my channel except for Game 1. Because Game 1, they didn't save the replay, but it's on the video on demand. That's linked in the description. You can go watch Game 1 as well. We've got Odium Chosen One going as the Wood Elves up against Pugginton's Dark Elves. And folks, we're going to have an interesting match. You did see the armies at the beginning, but I want to just call out a couple things. We've got a Glady on a dragon here, which is going to be a very fun unit to see in battle. We've got Morathi. Ooh, I love Morathi. Morathi's my favorite Dark Elf Lord. I don't know. I think she's better than Malekith. That's just my opinion. She's got Mystifying Miasma, Soul Stealer. Interesting, though, no Heartrender, Dark Sword, and no Enchanting Beauty. So Morathi is not bringing any of her debuffs to the table. Maybe cost was an issue here. That is very interesting to see that. Now, remember, Morathi will retain armor-piercing anti-large damage, but without her debuffs, she's going to want to avoid combat probably if possible. And just looking at the Dark Elf army, I like the pick. It's a ton of Bleak Swords and Dread Spears to just try and like overwhelm the Wood Elves by numbers and put a whole bunch of shielded units out there to make it more difficult for Wood Elf archers. And there are some of those. You can see a couple of these Way Watchers up front who are already firing. They're supported by Wild Riders, including the Hunters of Kurnos Regiment of Renown unit. And then we've got a Sisters of the Thorn out here. Sisters of the Thorn is a used to be crazy strong. They've got nerfed some, but they're still pretty strong. They've got physical resistance of 40%. So if they don't run into magic damage, they are a pretty decent unit, albeit kind of expensive. There's some Dryads and Eternal Guard back here. There's a Spellsinger, Lore of Life with Earthblood and Regrowth to be supporting the dragon as well. Now, Dryads, of course, they deal magic attacks, which isn't a huge deal against any of the Dark Elf units unless it was like Sisters of Slaughter or Witch Elves. But they are definitely an interesting unit. You can see here they're immune to Psychology. I think that's probably because they're in... Well, no. I think it's just one of their traits. They've got physical resistance, and then they're a damage dealer, basically. So let's hit play. Check out what's going on with the main battle here. You got the Glade. The Glady is firing already. There's some Shades here, and the Shades are coming under fire from the Way Watchers. That's a pretty good target. Those Shades are expensive. You can see they did some really nice damage to the Hunters of Kurnos very quickly. But you can see a breath attack coming for him, and oof, it does hit some. That was a pretty wide attack, but it did find its mark at least to some extent. Now there's a Scourge Runner Chariot. This will potentially be good against a dragon, though to be fair, the Scourge Runner Chariot can probably be dodged if there's a very active effort by the player. And look at that, the Way Watchers put a quick target on the Scourge Runner Chariot and nearly deleted it in one shot. So this is going to be an interesting one. You can see that the Harvesters, or Silnicious Harvesters, and the Dark Riders are all charging in. They're trying to force an engagement here that will allow their infantry to catch up. You can see a Soul Stealer immediately coming in here from Morathi to try and eat up some of these units in the mix here. The Silnicious Harvest... Actually, that Soul Stealer probably came from Silnicious Harvesters, my bad. It's one of their bound spells. But Morathi has it as well, so maybe just trying to eat away at the hit points of these units. You can see that these cavalry units are going to try and force the Glady into the ground and get her engaged in a fight that she really doesn't want to be engaged in. So you can see the Dark Elf infantry moving up, hoping to take advantage of this. Engagements across the boards. Dryads should defeat these Bleak Swords, but there's a lot of engagements going on. Cold One Knights running around. Sisters of the Thorn out here smacking into a Bleak Sword. Another Soul Stealer in this mix. But Glady, of course, can be healed. Has a lot of hit points. It's going to take some time. Infantry swinging around here from Pugginton. And this early engagement on the ground for the Glady is really not desirable for Chosen One. And you can see him desperately trying to get away from it. And Morathi here gets hit with the Prey of Enath-Rema. And is going to be targeted. Woo! But fortunately for her, there was some Helleborni Spearmen over here, at least getting a couple of the Way Watchers busy. But you can see she is going to take a massive beating. And then there's going to be a breath attack here from the Glade Lord, which I thought was going to go for Morathi, but actually went onto the Silnicious Harvesters and got rid of them. So an interesting fight. It's actually saying still slightly in favor of the Wood Elves at the moment. Morathi ended up taking a savage beating there. Ooh, she's going to go after the Spellsinger. Glady's going to have to dive in to try and stop that because Morathi is putting a beat down on that Spellsinger. But speaking of beat downs, it's going to turn the other way real quick if Mama doesn't get out of there because that is not a fight she's intended for. Look at the pressure here into the back lines by the Dark Elves. Very persistent, charging through, finding the openings, bringing more infantry, trying to tie down the Way Watchers, and having done so over here with some Bleak Swords, just, yes. And then look, the Slaaneash's Harvesters coming at it as well. This is how you have to try and take out Wood Elves here. You have got to keep their stuff busy. You can't let it keep firing. There's a Soul Stealer, which is going to give Morathi some of her life back that she desperately needs. And with the Spellsinger having gotten hit, I can't find her now, actually. Oh, here she is over here. So she was able to get away from combat. So the dragon does still have healing available to it. But the Way Watchers are dying, and they don't have a ton of ammo. You can see they're actually being rampaged on right now by a Cold One Knight. Rampage is typically bad, but in this case it's probably kind of good for the Dark Elves because they rampage straight into the Way Watchers and melee. The amount of Dark Elf infantry here is honestly just overwhelming the Wood Elves, and you can see it's swinging the power bar now too. And at this point the Spellsinger's caught, and this is it. I mean, she's toast. There's no surviving this. The Spellsinger's going to be dead. Morathi gets a bonus versus large, and all these cavalry have her pinned, so that's the end of that. Look at it. I mean, no Dark Render, no Heart Render and Dark Sword, no Enchanting Beauty. Morathi's still showing that when she picks the right engagement, Morathi really is decent in melee. She can't sit there and take a beating in a heavyweight fight, but she gets in, she can cause some serious damage in the right fights. I usually like using her to support like certain cavalry engagements, especially when she has her debuffs. She can make cavalry engagements go in the favor of her team. Obviously, if it's the right scenario, like if you come in, drop those debuffs come down. She has further debuffs, I believe, too. But yeah, she got some good magic. Anyway, the Wood Elves are looking to be in rough shape here. It's not looking good for them. They just kind of got overwhelmed before their key units could do all the damage they needed to. They started to do that damage. That Prey of Anathema had Morathi in bad shape, but some of the Way Watchers were caught up in melee as well, and it was slowing their ability to fire, and they were taking damage. So I like the pick here from the Dark Elves. It makes sense. A lot of people will take this kind of pick against the Wood Elves, which is basically just bring a bunch of cheap shielded infantry and a little mobility and rush, rush, rush. That's what you do, is just push, 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 because the Wood Elves infantry is rather, it's not good. Eternal Guard are okay. They're not great for their cost. They do have some armor piercing, which makes them decent against large for their cost, but they're not good in an infantry fight. And with all these Bleak Swords and Dread Spears and stuff like that, it really makes things difficult for the Wood Elves. And now the Wood Elves do have the advantage of having extremely good light cavalry in the Wild Riders. Wild Riders are probably my favorite light cavalry in the game by a long shot, and I say that with someone who really enjoys Centaurs as well, and Centaurs are also an excellent light cavalry. Wild Riders just have really good attack and good charge bonus, and yeah, they're a little squishy, but they hit hard against units with low armor. They can clean up low armor units probably faster than just about anything else in the game. And Wild Riders are just an excellent unit overall, an excellent unit. They're not cheap, which is probably a big downside to them, and they probably shouldn't be cheap because their stats are really quite good. But that's Wild Riders for you. So you can see the Glady's still skirmishing. There are a few units left on the ground, so she doesn't have to land yet. There's some Dryads and an Eternal Guard over here, so there are a few units allowing the Glady to stay in the air. And Chosen One is going to do his best to do whatever damage can be done. You can see him shooting for Morathi there. And the arrows of Kurnos do land a blow. You got a rampaging Cold One Knight chasing the Sisters of the Thorn. The Sisters, of course, are not going to want any part of that engagement. And you can see the Glady charging in, trying to save her sisters. And that actually stops the rampage, but it's going to draw a Soul Stealer from Morathi. And those Soul Stealers are just going to hurt. The power bar is already pushing it way against the Wood Elves. It's just, there's a lot of units here for that dragon to try and take out. There's very few units left on the ground for the Wood Elves. See the Sisters of the Thorn pushing up here, but the Shades had come back. The Shades do have I believe they have stock. so the sisters wouldn't have been able to see them until it was too late there. Unless they had eyes on them with the dragon, which I don't think they did. You can see the Shades now getting a few shots at the Glade Lord. It's definitely a good call, that armor-piercing missiles. The Glady is nearly out of ammo. It's not going to be enough to snipe Morathi. But, obviously, you got to do what damage you can do. And at this point, army losses break the Wood Elves, and the tournament goes to Reginald Pugginton. In my opinion, one of the best finals I've seen in a tournament in a long time. Of course, I don't watch every single tournament, but to me, this was fantastic. It was really good. I loved the final between Pugginton and Chosen One. It felt like two players who were, really duking it out from a skill level standpoint. Two players who clearly know the game very well and had played a lot of good games in this tournament. And of course, like I said, I'll go back and try and get some more replays from the tournament. Aristodemos was nice enough to send me a lot of the replays. They collected all the data. It's just really, I just want to say thank you to all those who helped with the tournament. Wicked, HapyPupy, Aristodemos, all the players. Thank you for all that you all did to put this tournament on my channel. I don't have time to sit and commentate these tournaments very often. It would be very rare for me to have the time to do this. And so I really appreciate them putting it together and pulling it together so that the community would have something to participate in and to watch. And I'm happy to host this kind of stuff. And especially for someone like Wicked, who does a ton of work for my channel as a moderator on the Discord, and someone who's just, always been a real huge help to me. So really excited about that. And then HapyPupy, of course, trying to get new into the streaming scene. She's over on Twitch. You can check out the link in the description if you want to see her channel. She's streaming multiplayer battles pretty much every day. So yeah, lots of fun stuff going on in the Total War Warhammer community. It's the game is getting older, but the community's not dead, and I love that. It's one of the reasons why I like making videos. I love these games, and I want other people to get involved in these games. And even a scene like this competitive 1v1 tournaments that I'm not personally involved in, I like it. I like it. I like seeing people enjoying the games in different ways, even if it's not the way that I enjoy the game most in, right? It's still fun to see, how they play. It teaches you about the units. It teaches you about how to maximize certain factions. And some of those lessons can then be applicable in social matches or in campaign fights. There's all kinds of stuff that you can learn about the game from watching all these different facets of it. So I find it very, very entertaining. So thanks to the players again for an awesome matchup. Very well played to both. Really enjoyed this one. Hope you all did too. HeirofCarthage signing out for now, and I'll be back with some more content soon.